Welcome to the Philip Levy Show, discussing health, wealth, and life. Here we go.
Joe Pessano, it is so good to see you, my brother. It's been a long time coming. I'm really happy that you've made the time to join us today, because this is an expose on you, my friend. And what better person to tell it like it is than you? So let's hit the ground running, man. Who is your daddy and what does he do? Um, Like who are you? What do you do? I mean, there's so many hats that you wear. That's why you're here, man, because I respect you as a practitioner and a friend and a fellow entrepreneur. And I want to hear, where do you want to start unpacking that? So with that beautiful smile of yours and energy, please just hit it, man.
Yeah, actually, that question of who you are is something that I really enjoy. I actually wrote an article last year for Best Holistic Life magazine, basically talking about when we get that question, how is it not only when we receive it, but how do we deliver it? And so to give you a quick breakdown of who Joe Pessano is the shadow of the shadow under the wing of a bird in flight, driven by compassion and love.
No idea what that means.
Yeah. And let me unpack that for you.
Please do. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you think about a shadow under a bird's wing while it's flying, it's always changing. At some points, the shadow will be very small. Some points, the shadow will be big. So we're always moving through these moments in our life where we are maybe bigger than ourselves, and sometimes we need to kind of go within, and the shadow kind of becomes a little smaller. It's how it's presented in the world almost. And it's all, and the bird is flying for a particular reason. And the bird that I'm hanging out with is driven by compassion and love. So essentially, I'm always doing my best to change and go with the flow that life always seems to deliver, no matter what we have to say in it. It's always going to
life's going to flow whether we're ready for it or not.
Right, exactly. And I always want to stay within that flow, with compassion always being at the forefront, because I have found that compassion can direct love into motion, but love doesn't always direct compassion into motion. So if you're thinking, hey, how do I want to move through the world? Well, I want to be a loving person. That's really great. So what are some of the things we can do to be that loving person? Well, if there's something that's guiding you, and if that something is a powerful presence in the world for the benefit of those around you, compassion is a great tool to use. And as you use that tool, compassion, more and more, love finds a way of flowing around you. And the next thing you know, you are almost walking in and enveloped in a bubble of love, which I feel pretty fortunate. I feel like I do have that bubble of love almost everywhere I go, man. Like, I walk into a work, the place that I love to be, and I feel the love of everybody. And I have to say, as you know, just recently I lost my mom. Tomorrow will be a month that she passed away. And, I could have, the next day, I could have just easily stayed home, but I wanted to be around the people who I know love me and who I love. And it really helped me navigate that emotional process, that it's still being navigated, but significantly easier. And so I feel very grateful to have that bubble of love, which I've done my best to cultivate.
How would you say that? First of all, I want to comment on, you're not lucky. You manifest. You work hard to create your own environment. This is my opinion, but what you create is difficult and it takes a lot of time. And I just don't, people are like, I'm so lucky that I have this, this life. And some people are lucky, but I think that it's important to identify that you create that energy, that lifestyle. So that's the first thing that I wanted to say. The question that I wanted to ask you is, how did you become this person who radiates such joy and compassion? Because compassion is, it's something that, a lot of people, like, they just don't even recognize as an emotion or as a feeling. And I do truly believe that if more people had that difficult emotion to harness and then project, more people had that, then a lot of the bullshit would just kind of go away. Like, it would take care of itself,
Totally.
So and that's a blanket statement, and I stick by it. Like, if we could, like, if there were more compassion in the world, like, lots of things would not be problems anymore,
Yeah.
So where did you start on this path? Because, I mean, like, at work, we have a picture of you in your 20s, and you're like jamming on bass on, you've got blue hair, and you're just like, just grunged out and everything. And I don't get a lot of compassion from that picture. Like, and maybe I'm wrong, but like, where did this path start?
It's so very funny that you say that, because I didn't have a lot of compassion for myself. I had a lot of compassion for those around me, which is, why a lot of people who are in that photo I'm still friends with today, but I didn't have very much compassion for myself. And so my path started long time ago. My mom, she's a astrologist. My sister is a professional astrologist. She also does channeling. When I grew up, we were going to like gypsy fairs and stuff like that. So I had this interesting lens on this world that a lot of 3, 4, 5-year-olds didn't have. So I kind of grew up in this world almost of mysticism and magic. And
Cool.
essentially, like, hey, question it all. Don't take anything that I'm saying as 100%. Go ahead and question it. And that resonated with me, as, hey, it's okay to question stuff. And if somebody doesn't like that I asked the question, maybe they weren't the person who was to give me the answer. And so that was a huge part for me, was just knowing, what is it I want to question, and being able to have questions. Then, of course, as we all grow, as we're growing up and getting older, we go through trials and tribulations. I don't know anyone who is making it out of this unscathed. We all are. And so, I've had my good times, my bad times. And especially as, I started getting older, I really had a lot of compassion for those around me. I was thinking, oh, I can fix those people, but I don't, my problems are too deep for me to fix. So, screw it. I'll just be sad. I'll put out this, hey, I'm a happy guy, but really I'm actually pretty sad. And those people who really started to get to know me, they knew that. And they're always like, dude, we don't get it, man. Like, what? Why are you such a dick to yourself? Like, why are you so mean to yourself? And, I just, it was something that I thought I was supposed to do to get better. And, I took that pretty far, to the point where that picture where I was all grunged out, where I didn't have compassion for myself, shortly after that, I attempted to take my own life. And it was after that all of a sudden I had this epiphany about myself, was, what are you doing? You're too important to go this early. You're not going now. You've got some time on this planet. And so I kind of came to, and I had this new appreciation for myself. And so it was a really beautiful thing. And so I was really figuring out how do I be nice to myself? If I think all of a sudden a thought comes in my head of, something that's disheartening or discouraging to myself, like, oh, you're a terrible person. What makes me a terrible person? I didn't have an answer for that. If I don't have an answer for it, then that's probably a pretty useless thought. And so I realized I don't want to waste time on useless thoughts. And so as these useless thoughts would arise, I'd started picking them off. And I was like, oh man, I don't need to have that thought anymore. I don't need to have that thought anymore. And before I knew it, it was kind of like this, if you're peeling an onion and you're going through layer after layer after layer, and by the time you're done, there's no onion left, the crying stops. You wash your hands of it, the onion's gone, the crying stops. The woes of me, they don't exist anymore. Now it's just the hell yeah, life is freaking awesome. And I'm
no more onions.
No more onions. I'm choosing
Great.
to be, yeah, and my meditation practice was decent, but it was never anything that was a practice. It was like, oh yeah, I knew how to meditate here, I knew how to meditate there, and it was really a scattered meditation practice. When I started to get dialed into my practice, which was probably around 13, 14 years ago, where I really started to dive deep into it, all of a sudden the little things in life, just the volume of them got turned down tremendously. And when that happened, then the bigger things in life, that volume also decreased. I could still hear it, and once again, everyone is going to encounter something in their life that is going to be something that's going to either tilt the emotional scales towards sadness or crying, or tilt it towards happiness and joy. And I found that the more I'm able to stay in the middle of observing these feelings and observing the emotions, then I wasn't getting swayed as greatly. And so the meditation practice then started to become more importance to me. And, that was a huge part of being able to choose happiness.
What were you sad about?
Oh, man. So, we'll just start with, my dad. I've never been afraid to tell people, my dad, he wasn't ready to be a dad. He wasn't ready. I think he was practicing, to be a father, but actually having the kid, I don't think he was ready. And he tried, but he was a pretty sad person. And he was pretty angry and violent. Of course, I hope that he's learned to have peace now. I haven't talked to him for a long time, and I hope he's in peace. But he was a pretty bad guy. And as I was growing up, I looked more and more like him. And this was somebody who I hated. This guy, I just hated him. So here I am. I wake up and I look in the mirror, and I'm basically looking at this person I hate. So I see him in front of me. That's who I am. There's no denying. I'm the person in front of the mirror, but I'm also looking like this person. So maybe if I'm looking like this person, then other people, they hate me, because if I hate me, then they must hate me. And so, I'll be nice to people just so that they don't hate me more. Okay, somebody's hurt. Let me see if I can go out of the way to see if I can ease some of that pain. And maybe they hate me as much as I hate. And it took a long time. And I had, some pretty significant breakdowns in regards to this. And it was finally, my mom, go back to my mom, I was sitting there in front of her crying. And I was just like, how can you even look at me? I look like the man that hurt you tremendously. How is it you're able to smile and love me? And she's like, because you're not that person. Like, you are like the complete opposite of that person. Like, look at the people in your lives. Like, people want to be around you. Like, you are not that person. And so it was something about how she had said it and the way she looked at me when she said it. And I realized, I was like, yeah, that's so true. Like, he was a freaking jerk, but I'm not a jerk to people. And, I actually care about people. Didn't really seem to care about people. So we are vastly different. And it was that moment I was able to look at myself differently. I could look in the mirror and, just see somebody who now wanted to be happy, as opposed to this person who was just a terrible, horrible person just because of the way I looked. And, I, of course, now realize, man, he was a beautiful guy. He really was. He was just a handsome.
What do you think? I mean, moms have that moms have that uncanny ability. I think now that's one thing. You are lucky to have a great mother. One is lucky to have a great mother. I am also blessed to have an amazing mother. Um, but moms have that ability to just hear some knowledge and you didn't think about it. And then everything, it's like, oh, there was life before you said that, and there's life after it. Because when mom says something, you're probably going to pay attention. Um, how did you come to? How do I phrase this? How did you come to forgive your father, and put him in a light that was completely or in the light from a shadow?
Yeah. So I was really getting interested in the teachings of Buddha, the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. And essentially, it just breaks down to how everybody is suffering. We can come out of that suffering, but everybody is suffering. And all of a sudden, it made me realize this guy who, was my dad, he was suffering, and he was just suffering. And I can't put anger onto a suffering person. I'm not going to be angry at somebody who's sad. It just doesn't make sense. And if I'm really going to believe that most people throughout their lifetimes are suffering in some way or another, he clearly is. I mean, I look back at every possible relationship I've ever known him to have, and he doesn't have any friends. He's never been in a successful love life. All of his kids, he doesn't keep in contact with any of us. He's got to be suffering. And so all of a sudden, if I can look at him, he's a suffering human being. The first thing to do is to give him love and give him compassion. And if all of a sudden I'm saying to myself, oh, I need to give my dad love and compassion, I don't have to think, am I going to forgive him? Because the compassion is driving the train, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you forgive him, you're just going to be compassionate to him and love him, right? That's what you're saying you're going to do, Joe. So go ahead and do that. And so I just really started doing that, and basically sending him love, being like, hey, I love you. You've got a pretty good kid over here who, if you ever want to meet, I'd be more than happy to, see you again. And just sending him that love and energy. And it really helped me, because then now, instead of any thoughts that ever came up of something that could have ever happened in my past where he was involved, that volume knob was almost muted. I mean, it turned so far down. All I could think now is when those thoughts came. For example, I was in high school and I had signed up to do this 50-mile charity bike ride. And I thought I was a pretty good cyclist in high school, right? So we drive a few hours out and we get on this course, and it's just climbing. I've never done an organized ride. So every time we get to a rest stop, I was like stopping for like 35, 40 minutes, talking to people, then to get back on the bike. And it took me a really long time to do this 50 miles. And so he was waiting for me. Well, by the time I showed up, he was furious at me. What took you so long? And he just was drilling into me until I finally had to say, I just did a 50-mile charity bike ride. Why? Like, I didn't know how long it was going to take me. And so before I really had that understanding of how sad he was, that used to affect me a lot, thinking about that moment. Now I can think about that moment. I just see somebody who was really sad in his life, and he had a lot of frustration and anger with himself. And I was the person he took it out on, which, I'm glad I was available for that, because he needed that outlet, and I'm able to be here now, and I don't carry that burden. I can relive that moment without the emotion attached to it. There's no feeling. It's just being able to witness the moment. Okay, that was that.
Stepping outside and witnessing. I think that's one thing that's a skill that takes a long time to foster, and it takes a lot of studying. One of my favorite kind of maxims is that everyone is seeking happiness of some sort, in whatever shape that may be, and they may shit on people in order to get that. but in order, I've had some personal recent experiences where there were some people that I, thought were friends. And then, I heard like, oh, heard some things that you said that were not very nice. And, that's fine. They're seeking that happiness. They're looking to elevate themselves by attempting to bring me down. And I'm only going to give it power if I respond to it. But, taking oneself out of the scenario and kind of looking back in on it, it's like, oh, poor you. Wow, you really, you're really trying to, you're seeking happiness. And if that's how you got to do it, then I pity you, and I am compassionate towards your path. I may have some suggestions that could help where everyone wins. But if that's what you feel like is necessary, then I'll continue to be up here and you continue to be wherever you are. And but anyway, I think that's an interesting kind of paradox. That's one thing that it took me a long time, and it doesn't work all the time. It took me a long time to kind of arrive at that. So what is it that you're this beautiful kaleidoscope of a person. And I mean, what do you do with your day to day? Like when you have a great wife, you have a cool little dog. But how do you spend your days? What do you love to do?
Yeah, great question. I love to try to be as creative as I can be, and which, funny enough, requires some research sometimes.
How so?
And yeah, so one of the things that I want to do now is I want to build a guitar from scratch, and so I can't just go out and buy a bunch of wood and just start plucking to see what I can do. So I do a bunch of research. I read as much as I can. I watch video blogs, video journals of people building. And so now it's, getting me to the point where I'm getting closer and closer to getting the wood. Cause now I have a better understanding of, hey, what wood do I really need? If I just went out and was like, I'm just going to buy a bunch of stuff and just, I'm sure at some point I could probably do that. But right now I'm a beginner. And so, so for me to really be able to express that creativity, I got to do a little research for it. And so, of course, I just built this bad boy from a kit, right?
Pow! Look at that thing.
Bam! Can I get a what?
Yeah, you can.
So I started that journey of wanting to build a guitar with buying a kit, and then I put the kit together, worked on this freaking kit. It was madness, my friend. It was madness.
Yeah,
just a wild experience, and it was through that experience that really got me excited about building a scratch guitar. And then, of course, before building the guitars, I was very interested in, working on them. I was trying to, hey, how can I work on these myself to get the best performance out of my guitar, which, of course, is how I ended up inventing the Tremolo Buddy.
What? Tremolo Buddy?
Tremolo Buddy.
What's that?
So it's this cool little tool here.
It's the double clamp. It looks like your extra hand. Your third hand. What is the catchphrase? Your third hand, right?
Yeah, your third hand.
Because what your third arm was taken, right?
That's exactly right. What it does is
Let's talk about that. You could hold it up to the camera.
Called a floating tremolo. So it springs on the back that, along with the strings on top, that keep it in perfect tension. So when you go to change the strings, it's a pain in the butt, because as soon as you remove one of these strings, this whole bridge drops, because now the springs are taking over. They're pulling, right? So changing the strings and working on one of these guitars is a total pain in the butt. So basically what I did was
you hold up just a little bit higher.
Oh yeah, babe. So I took this wonderful thing. Let me get this squared away. Okay, I'm doing this off camera. It's going to make it easier.
It's all good, man.
All right. So what I do is I just attached this to the body like so. Yeah. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to depress this arm, so that way when the springs now they're loaded, I can take all of the strings off without worrying about this dropping down or falling back. So now I can take all the strings off, which is almost the biggest no-no that you could think about doing. I can now put the new strings on, tune it up, take this off, retune it, and my guitar is ready to play. And the pre-stretch has been done. I mean, it's like, it's wild, man.
And
so
you
basically,
can you do me a one big favor? Can you take, the shot is a little bit, it's the sun is catching. Can you close that a little bit more? A little bit more, a little bit more, a little more, a little more. Oh, there we are. There's Joe. There it is. Perfect. All right. So that thing's, I mean, I don't know anything about electric guitars, but I can tell you that like trying to do something like here's what I know about. I know about like, I'm putting together this little model ship and I'm like, I need to hold this thing and then hold that thing, but wait, let me just put this part in my mouth. And then like you're like, you get that one little tab, you're like almost, and then it just falls apart. And it's so like, if I were a guitarist, I would have smashed many a guitar out of frustration alone and just like, who wins now, MFR? And then the dead guitar always wins because those things aren't cheap, I hear at least.
Yeah, they're not.
So that's a pretty creative outlet right there, man. How did you so you came up with a Tremolo Buddy and you were just like out of bed, or you tweaked it around? How did you come up with that?
So, yeah, man. So essentially I'd been putting off changing my strings for months and months and months because it's just such a pain, right? And then finally I was just sitting there on the couch and Joyce is next to me and I had been researching. Like there's all of the ways out there to try to make it easier. It just didn't work for me. And then I'm sitting there with it on my lap and I was like, I just need somebody to hold this bar down. Like if I had a clamp. And it was that moment. And I was like, oh my God. I ran downstairs. I grabbed one of my wood clamps. I freaking put it on. The thing was like wobbling all over the place. You know, it was like not stable. I'm sweating, thinking any moment this clamp's going to pop off and I'm screwed.
Hurry.
And it stayed on. And then I thought, you know, hey, if I just had one more clamp where the bodies could clamp the body, that thing would be awesome. So the next day I basically went to the garage. I grabbed my grinder. I cut up a couple freaking clamps. I put it together. I came upstairs, put it on, and it was it totally worked, man. So it was that was really the first incarnation, that first Frankenstein prototype. And I still have it. It's like it's gigantic, unwieldy, you know what I mean?
And you took it to the Anaheim. You took it to a trade show and just slayed.
Oh, dude!
Recently, right?
I killed it at the trade show. So I'm gonna rewind real quick before the trade show. Yeah. So I said earlier something I truly love: manifestation. So as soon as I knew that I wanted to make this, I started my manifestation process. My manifestation process is. You can hear a lot of people kind of talk about manifesting now, where there's a couple critical factors. One, you have to really see what it is you want. You have to see it as if it's already happened. Like, this is what's going to happen.
Hell yeah, that's powerful.
Powerful, right? Then you put some kind of a feeling with that. Like, hell yeah, that's going to happen. And I'm feeling really stoked about the fact that it's happened. Because now our feelings are fantastic catalysts to change, right? If you feel like crap from drinking beers all night long, you may not drink that many beers the next day, or you might. But all of a sudden, if you're feeling terrible, you may not ever want to drink again. So feelings can really be a huge catalyst for change.
Okay.
So trying to change towards the positive, tie some kind of feeling with that vision you have. And that's going to be a huge one. Then another aspect is when you encounter the roadblocks, because you're going to encounter roadblocks, and you're going to encounter shit that's going to come up, you don't lose sight of the finished product. You don't lose sight of what it is going to happen. So when I first started doing the Tremolo Buddy, my clients kept asking me, well, what's the end game for this? What is it you want to do? And I said, I'm going to sign a licensing deal with Floyd Rose. That from the get-go, that was who I was going to sign a licensing deal, saying it basically as if it's already done. So now we'll fast forward, we get to the trade show, I'm killing it. Like the first day I was so busy, I don't even know where time went. It was just, the doors open. Next thing I know, doors are closing.
Flow state,
and
baby. Flow state.
Flow. It was beautiful. It was really
Yeah.
right. And then the next day, the folks from Floyd Rose, they kept swinging by my booth. They kept coming. One guy would come, somebody else would come, and then in the middle of a pitch, Andy, who is the CEO of Floyd Rose, he shows up and he waits for me to finish my pitch, and then he walks up to me and he's like, "Hey, my name's Andy. I'm basically the CEO of Floyd Rose. We want to do a deal with you." And I said, "Oh, that's great, because I want to do a deal with you too." And he's like, "What do you think?" And I said, "Exclusive licensing deal with you guys where you take care of everything." And they go, "Done." That was it. And we signed the papers on the first day, the summer solstice. So it was really beautiful. So, I mean, I never lost sight. I mean, there were moments where I had to fundraise a ridiculous amount of money, but because of the people who I have in my life, they were more than happy to help me out. You know, they were just like, "Hey man, go, do it." And so somebody else might have encountered a pretty significant challenge like that and just said, "Well, hey, it's not for me. Whatever, I can't afford to do it." And I was like, "Screw that. This is my vision isn't going to happen if I stop here. It's not going to happen if I don't just keep going forward and keep pushing." Of course it's not. You're not going to cross that finish line if you stop early. Yeah. And so it was beautiful. So, that manifesting is really powerful. So yeah, I was very excited to get the deal with Floyd Rose, and I love that. They're just a fantastic organization. It's been really a lot of fun working with them. I'm feeling really grateful.
That's
just
great,
awesome, man. It's so cool. Like right now, my tremolo buddy is in the hands of like world famous guitar tech. Like it's wild to think like here are people who've been doing it for a long time, and they've been thinking how much of a pain in the ass this is, and all of a sudden they get a tool and it's like, cool, this makes my life easier.
That is awesome. Okay, so who do you look up to, and that could be personal or historical?
I would love to say that if I was to have a dinner, that I would invite all of these crazy minds to come together and we could just go crazy with all these wonderful thoughts and ideas. But a lot of those folks that I would want to invite may not have the same idea of what a good conversation would be. So, I really love the idea about talking with somebody like Nikola Tesla. He was absolutely just a creative mind, and the way he approached bettering himself was just a beautiful thing. She was always looking for, hey, how can I make life better for others, not just myself? And it takes a lot of courage to do something like that and explore the world that he was exploring. He was very much into mathematics, really into the idea of energy, and it would be fascinating to talk to him. So I admire, how he went through life. I don't know if I would go through life the same way, but we're also to experience something.
You got to be a little more cutthroat to survive in his field. His end was not a super happy one.
No, it wasn't. It really was.
What he was trying to do was definitely a great thing. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And then, of course, I would love to possibly meet Lao Tzu. But the fun part about Lao Tzu, though, is we don't really know if it was one person or a few people, or so the myth behind it is actually very intriguing. So if there was a singular person, that would be pretty fascinating to just be in the presence of. Because
how do you feel like, they said you should never meet your heroes? I mean, what would your response be? If Lao Tzu was just like, I never said all that shit.
Well, see, that would be awesome. Okay. That would be awesome, because clearly somebody had to put the book together, right? So it's like, okay, hey, Lao Tzu, you didn't do it. Who did? Like, that's the person I want to talk to now, right?
Okay.
Like, cool.
Okay.
I appreciate you being honest with me and telling me it wasn't you. I want to talk to the person who did say all of that stuff, because all that stuff was written down. You know,
Right.
it's a cool story. Are you familiar with the story about how that book was written, the Tao Te Ching?
I don't know. I don't know how the book is written. I want to hear it though.
Yeah. So Lao Tzu was getting ready to leave the city or the town of Chu, and the guard at the gate basically said, "Hey, before you leave, will you write me a book on how to live life?" And so Lao Tzu agreed and wrote basically a 5,000 page or 5,000 word book on life. And you know, whether or not that's true, you know, I mean, at that time and day and age, a security guard could easily have withheld him and said, "Hey, you don't get to go anywhere." So that's a possibility. You know, where would Lao Tzu have gone? You know, the stories, of course, is he went somewhere in the hills and the caves to spend his final days. He might have gone to be a fisherman. Who really knows? Yeah. But somebody had to have given those 5,000 words, and that's a fascinating thing to think about. Somebody who took the time to be so precise with such a kaleidoscopic vision that the Tao Te Ching is. And so that'd be a pretty interesting conversation. And I don't even know if they would want to talk. They might just say, "Hey, feel my energy." And I would be kind of essentially, if that was where I was trying to go, I'd be required to be in that space of that person. You know, I'm not saying, "Hey, I want you to teach me." I go in there to their space. Just like when we have clients and they're like, "Hey, I want you to teach me how to move better." They come into our space and they respect our wishes. So I would do this. I would do the same thing.
Okay. Excellent.
The same thing.
So, okay. What's the Tao Te Ching?
So the Tao Te Ching is, it's the second most translated book in the world, which is pretty crazy. It's right behind the Bible.
It's not To Kill a Mockingbird? Are you sure?
It's not, right? I know.
It's not the number one translated.
It could be. I could be.
Maybe Atticus Finch was a popular guy.
Hey, totally.
So what is it?
It's fascinating. So now when people are talking about the Tao Te Ching in today's day and time, they're basically saying this book is talking about quantum physics, quantum mechanics. It's also talking about the universe and how the universe works. Undeniable truths, like if there's something long, there's going to be something short, and they define each other, right? If you just have something short and you say this is short, well, there's nothing next to it to define whether it's short or not. It could be long. I could put something next to it that's shorter. So now you need the two to help define each other. So little truths like that, it's an undeniable truth. Yeah, okay, that's short because the other one is longer, and that's long because the other one is shorter.
Right.
It's undeniable, you know?
Yeah.
So it's little things like that. It's also trying to explain the universe and how we work within the universe. And it does that in a way that has to be, in a way, almost tricky with the language, sneaky with the language, so that you can almost begin to decipher it for yourself and really go within to figure out, what does something mean? One of my favorite passages is, what is a good man but a bad man's teacher? And what is a bad man but a good man's job? And the idea that if you don't understand this, if you never understand it, you'll get lost. But somebody who thinks, wait, I'm not going to get lost like that. I know what a bad man is. Like, I may have a neighbor and they're stealing electricity from us. That's a bad man, right? So I understand. So, well, then what's my job? So I have a job. I can't be a bad man, because if I'm supposed to be the teacher, the good man. So wait, how is this working? You know, and you start to go through this really beautiful way to examine these words and examine yourself. I mean, maybe at times I was the bad man, and it took somebody putting me in my place to say, hey, that's not right. I need to change that if I want to be a good human being.
I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a really beautiful book, and you know, it's you don't have to believe in any religion or anything like that. It's really non-secular.
Yeah.
So if somebody who is deep in, Christianity or Zoroastrianism, they could read it and take away almost everything from it without it taking anything away from what they already believe. And that's a really powerful thing, because there's so much that divides us. But if you can give somebody a tool and say, hey, look, this is just me telling you some stuff that is real and true, that doesn't have anything to do with hell or heaven or angels or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just check it out and see if any of it agrees with you. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it is. And they're not asking for money at the end of the lesson. Hey, I had a question about regarding Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism? Is that
Zoroastrianism, I think it is.
Zoroastrianism, got it.
Yes.
Did you say that your mother was a professional
astrologist?
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is the difference between an astrologist and an astronomer?
So an astronomer
and what is it that your mother did?
Yeah. So astronomer is going to search for things in the sky.
Okay.
They're going to search for things in the sky. An astrologer is going to take those things that were searched for and the things that we understand about the patterns of those bodies, the planets, those are bodies, astronomical bodies, what those bodies are doing. And then essentially they say, hey, this one planet is going to go around when it comes back within our eye line at this particular level in the sky at this time of the year. It makes us feel this particular way. Let's track that. Let's see what does that continue to happen. And eventually things like, Mercury retrograde, most people now have heard of Mercury retrograde. And a lot of people it's like,
don't do anything bad.
Don't do anything, right?
Yeah, just sit still.
Yeah, just sit still, right? But the reality is, all it's telling you to do is put in front of your life, re-examine, renegotiate, reuse, repurpose. Let's say you have to go to the dentist, they're fixing it. So they're re-examining the issues. They're, if you throw in front of it, now it's not this scary thing. It's just, hey, I'm not going to buy anything new. I'm going to examine what I already have. I'm going to say, oh, I actually don't need that. I can just go get this, drill bit for my drill. I don't have to buy a brand new drill. I can just get a drill bit. I'm just so lazy. I just don't want to get a drill bit. I just want, right. And all of a sudden you just say, hey, I'll just sit home and I'll go ahead and fix the things I have, and I can still be active and I can still do things. Mm-hmm. And so we're understanding that whole Mercury retrograde thing now significantly more. Of course, there's people out there who don't believe in it, and so that's totally fine. I'm pretty in tune with energy, and so I definitely kind of can know when it's coming around, and so I just apply, the Murphy's Law to it. Hey, I'm just going to be prepared. Be prepared for things to go wrong, and then I won't be caught up in some emotional wave of, oh, this is happening. My email is on the fritz. My phone doesn't want to do this, or it really affects electronics a lot.
I signed a business deal with a partner from hell.
2015.
Exactly. Yeah, that happened. Someone told me, they were like, hey, Mercury's in retrograde. I'm like, what's that mean? And they're like, don't do anything big. And I'm like, yeah, kind of signed a business deal yesterday. That turned out real smooth, didn't it? Oh, yes. A story for another day. Yes. So what would the opposite of Mercury being in retrograde? What would be everything's going to be great? Is there a time, and when can I mark my calendar?
Yeah, basically when Mercury ends being retrograde.
Oh, so it's every other
right?
place. Okay, great.
Yeah, it's so ideally, and how you navigate the Mercury retrograde stuff, it doesn't become that overwhelming anymore. It doesn't become that bad. So you're turning down the volume of what Mercury retrograde does, which is really fascinating. But honestly, every day, if you are approaching it the way that we should be approaching life, with zeal and passion and a fervor to better yourself, then all of a sudden life gets pretty extraordinary, because the only limits that are being placed on you are the limits you're imposing upon yourself. If you're going to say man, you just did the freaking Kokoro, dude, how amazing is that? You basically took the limits and you're like, screw this. I'm testing my limits. I'm going to go for it and have an extraordinary experience, which you did, man. I mean, just that'll be another cover story, but truly
go ahead.
Inspiring. You know what I mean? It's absolutely inspiring, because when somebody hears of a story like that, the human potential, you almost say to yourself, hey, I don't know if you know this, but I'm human too. I wonder what I could possibly achieve if some of these limiting factors that I'm imposing on myself, these rules, like these self-imposed rules that we've created for ourselves, as soon as you start throwing out that rule book, man, we begin to enjoy life more. Life becomes more play and less struggle. You know, I mean, yeah, people have to go to work still, but if you are going to work and you're enjoying what you do, it shouldn't cause you such mental distress or this, you know, this calibration to feeling not great. So many people, I think, are calibrated to, oh, well, you know, I don't feel that good. So, but whatever, that's normal. That's my normal life. But when you start to become calibrated to freaking feeling awesome, then you feel something that doesn't feel great. You are able to reel yourself in way faster, because you're like, hey, that does not feel right. I am not going to eat 5 Big Macs again. Done. Like, that was, what was I thinking? Like, that's so dumb, right? Yeah. Boom, I'm calibrated to feeling good. That made me feel terrible. Let's get back to, you know, feeling good again. And, you know, it's really, that's where habits come in, right? Habits help us calibrate to the good and to the positive.
What would your superpower be if you had a superpower, Joe?
And that's tough, dude. That's honestly, that's pretty tough. Yeah, I know. So, okay, if I'm able to fly, am I able to do things like carry boats?
So no, because that'd be super strength also.
Oh, I was trying.
I know.
I was trying again. You know, I'll take fly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Just the freedom of it. You know, the ability to kind of like say, I'm just gonna kind of get out of here and look to see places that I've never been able to get to.
Yeah.
Unless I can fly there.
Yeah.
You know, so I think fly would be pretty slick. Oh man, I'd love to hang out with birds. Oh, yeah. Just soar in the sky with a bird.
Right.
You're like, dude, why are you looking at me like that? Oh, because I'm the shadow under your wing. I don't know if you know that.
Boom. There you go.
Boom.
Good tie back there. Good tie back. So, and if there were a time in your life where you knew you were on the wrong path, what would that time be? And then how would you correct it?
No, is this a time from my past, or is this, how would I know? Open-ended. Yeah. So I try to do as much meditation as I can. And it's not really a sitting meditation that I'm always doing. It's pretty much me moving through the world.
Yeah.
Which when I first started doing was very challenging, because I would try to do this walking meditation, having a conversation with somebody, and they're saying like, man, you're totally zoned out.
How do you do a walking meditation while you're having a conversation with someone?
Great question. Question. Right. So when you understand, essentially for myself, that the meditation I'm going for is an inner stillness.
Okay.
Right. Just a calm, a peace. And I'm pretty calibrated to feeling that calm and that peace. So as soon as I begin to feel myself come out of that, which sometimes it can be something slow, like, man, somebody's kind of like, they're pulling all the right, you know, threads, they're pushing all the right buttons that, you know, I thought didn't exist anymore. Okay, now I have to kind of navigate this, and I figure out how do I get myself back to that calm center place.
Okay.
And every now and then, which doesn't happen quite as much, but it happened recently after my mom passed away, was my patience fuse was gone. It was just no more. And I remember this guy, I was driving, this guy cut me off. And I mean, he almost hit me. We were almost in a wreck. We weren't, right? That's the operative thing. No one was hurt. We were safe. And I had a thought for one split second was I'm going to pull up to this guy. I'm going to pull him out of the car and I'm just going to inflict some damage on him. And then within a breath, the other side of me that has put in all the practice was like, you're not gonna do that, dude. You're not gonna do that. Come on. This person is probably having a horrible day. They don't know that you're having a horrible day. And so just move on and just move forward. And that it all happened so fast.
Yeah.
But I knew instantly that the first thought I had, I wasn't gonna be able to reel that in. It needed to come out. It needed to say, I'm going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the follow-up thought. The follow-up thought was the thing that I've been training myself for. That was the thought that mattered, right? You're not going to do that. You're not going to do that. It's unnecessary. And so it's not saying that you're not going to ever come out of that stillness or that
mm-hmm.
moment, but
mm-hmm.
how do you navigate and how fast can you get back into that good place, that calm place? So I don't know if that fully answers the question.
Yeah, no, I think it does, because it's being able to, like, you were about to go down the wrong path, and then that's perfect. Yeah, I mean, it could have been, it's rhetorical. Also, it's your question to answer, and there's no multiple choice or right or wrong.
But that was definitely, and that was recent, man.
Yeah,
that was recent, and it was crazy because I haven't felt that level of anger since I was really young, and my anger was a little bit out of control. So for me, there was like this moment of what the heck, I thought I had control of this. Where did that come from? And I think that's important to realize that even though we're all working on being better human beings, hopefully. Right? Hopefully. And
fingers crossed,
and
double them up.
We can only hope that the practice that's what's going to get us through. If we get veered off the path, that the practice is going to come back, because we're always going to be tested every day. We're going to be tested by something. And what mm-hmm. tool do you pull out of your toolbox that you've worked on? Mm-hmm. One of my favorite sayings is, you can't build a house with a hammer alone. You need to have tools, and not every situation is going to call for one single method. I haven't found one method that works every single time for the exact same thing. That's why there's so many different breathing techniques, because you're not going to do one breathing technique for every possible thing on the planet. We have to have different breathing techniques. And that's just what we do with our breath. Mm-hmm. So when we encounter things that are external from us, our breath is here, internal and external. So when we have something that comes externally, we better have the tools to navigate it.
Love it. So what is one thing that you do really well?
I think I would say communicate with people. I would say help people and help bring out the best in people, their authentic self. Like, that's such a cliche thing now to say. They're like, you got to be your authentic self.
A buzzword.
It is, but I've been saying it for so long that I want to keep it in my repertoire. But yeah, I would say help people open up their heart and become their best self. And I would say that's kind of, I would say I do that pretty well.
I agree. Knowing you personally for as long as I have, I agree. You do that really, really well. All right. Last question. This is a really tough one. Okay. Are there any maxims that you adhere to? It's not a hard question. I don't think. Your beliefs again.
Yeah. The gift of the awakening heart of compassion is its radiance of love benefits all.
The gift of the radiating heart of compassion.
Are you ready? The gift of the awakening heart of compassion.
The gift of the awakening heart of compassion.
It's I gotta say it all over again.
I don't want to understand it, because it was
the
really
gift
long.
Of the awakening heart of compassion. Its radiance of love benefits all. The gift of the awakening heart of compassion. Its radiance of love benefits all.
Okay, and that sounds like we're circling back to the compassion statement that we spoke about earlier.
Yeah.
And Look at that. Things come full circle, don't they?
They do, man.
I
They
like
do.
it.
I can talk about compassion all day, every day, man. That's you want to get me stoked on a conversation. That's
Well,
like
let's exit with a little chat about compassion. What could you tell me about compassion other than we need more of it in the world?
Yeah. Well, I kind of hinted at it earlier, but compassion directs and drives love. Because if you're able to have compassion for always start with compassion self, right? Take care of the self, right? Make sure your compassion bucket's overflowing, because then you take that overflow and you can give it to as many people as possible. And the more people you give it to, then all of a sudden your circle of compassion expands. And when your compassion circle expands, love starts to gravitate towards it. It's like a giant body. Like the sun is a giant body. All the other planets are, hey, they want to gravitate towards something nice. The warmth, the pull and power of the sun. That's what your compassion ends up doing. And you begin to find that love follows where compassion goes. And it doesn't work the other way around. Love doesn't direct compassion. It can be a byproduct sometimes, but there's people out there who they have a love, but they may not have compassion in the place that it needs to be. So I've definitely found that if you can live and move with compassion through your life, love will just follow.
Oh yeah, man. I can get behind that 100%. Well, Joe P, thank you so much for your time today. It's been really enlightening. I always enjoy talking with you, and I'm glad we could record this and bring some of your love and compassion to our audience. So
thanks, brother. I love you, dude.
I love you, dude.
Yeah.
All right, my man. Well, you go have a very compassionate rest of your day. I'm going to try to do my best to do the same, and I will talk to you very, very soon. All righty?
Yes, you will, my man.
All right.
I'll see you
Thank
tomorrow,
you so
man.
much. Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning into the show. Please share and subscribe.